Most people use Claude Code one prompt at a time. That might work for toy demos, but it falls apart when you're building real apps. Real apps need structure, reusable setups, clear specs, design rules, tests, checkpoints, and a way for the agent to keep working until the job is done. How's it? I'm Leon. I'm a software engineer with nearly 20 years experience, and in this video I'll show you the Claude Code workflow that I would use to build real applications. First things first, setting up a new project. Let me know down in the comments if you are guilty of this as well. When you start a new project, you do one of two things. You manually install your framework and all of its dependencies, or you open Claude Code, go into planning mode, and ask the agent to suggest a tech stack for you. Or you give it a massive prompt describing everything you need in this project. That is a massive waste of time. I bet you that most of you watching this video reuse the exact same tech stack for pretty much every project that you build. A way more efficient alternative is to create an agent skill. In this skill, you can describe your entire tech stack to the agent. I can simply install the skill into my blank project, open up Claude Code, and ask it to set up the project on my behalf. So my recommendation is create a skill, upload it to your GitHub repository. All you have to do in your new project is run the command npx skills, followed by the name of your GitHub repository. This will scan your repo for any skills, and I've got like 18 skills in this repository. So I'll simply select Create Agentic App, then I'll select Claude Code, and now in the Agents and Claude folders, we now have this Create Agentic App skill. And of course, feel free to use my skill as well. Now, when we restart Claude Code, let's run the skills command, and we can see the Create Agentic App skill was installed. So some of you might be thinking that you could achieve the same thing by simply uploading a template to GitHub and then clone it down whenever you start a new project. Now this skill basically does that, but the agent will then assist you in setting up everything. It will install dependencies and remove any features from the template that you don't need. So let's just say, please set up the boilerplate project. And Claude is now reading in our Create Agentic App skill. Look, I am going to skip through all of these questions, but Claude will now ask you how you want to set up this project. So do you want to install this in a subfolder or in the root? Do you want a database? Do you want user auth? It's going to ask you all of these setup questions. I'm simply going to answer these and skip ahead. Right, the agent is done and it scaffolded this entire project for me. And by the way, this includes all of the different agents, all of the skills, everything I like to add to my projects. So this is the absolute best way to hit the ground running fast. If I ever want to include more skills or sub-agents in my next projects, I can simply update this agent skill, push it to GitHub, and I'm good to go in the next project. This even started up the Postgres database for me. And if I visit localhost, I can see my starter kit over here. Yes, this doesn't look very beautiful, but it does support light and dark mode. This is the perfect foundation for building any web app. Now here's the mistake a lot of people make when using agentic coding. Since we've got this foundation up and running, it's very tempting to just tell Claude to build our application for us. But that is a massive mistake. I recommend creating a basic landing page and to create our design system first. It's way easier to iterate and change the design system now than later in the project where we've got a lot of back-end complexity. Now, there are many different ways to create design systems for your applications. One very popular tool is Stitch from Google. You can simply prompt a design into existence and then copy the design system down to your app. The fact that you're watching this video means you do have access to Claude Design. And just like with Google Stitch, you can prompt an agent to create this design from nothing. And once you're happy with the design, you can use this as your design system in your app. Another approach is to go to something like Dribbble, find the design that you like, grab a screenshot, and then pass that to Claude in order to create a design system. I do have videos on my channel going through each of those processes separately. For this tutorial, we'll just use the front-end design skill. This is just a way to get Claude to create beautiful designs that do not look like AI slop. In the claude.md file, I'm simply tagging the agents.md file. Since Claude is the only harness using the claude.md file and everything else uses agents.md, I simply like to just include the agents.md file, and then all of my rules are actually stored in the agents file. I like to keep this file really lean. I mean, if I show you, this is like 37 lines only. It's super short. I like to keep the responses concise and to the point. So sometimes Claude is way too chatty. And keep in mind, you are being built for all of those tokens being used. So keeping Claude's responses concise can save you some money and you can get more usage out of your plans. In planning mode, I'm simply encouraging Claude to ask clarifying questions and not to make assumptions. And yes, this is all you need. You don't need a framework like Superpowers, SpecKit, or BMAD. I've tried all of them, I've wasted hours in planning mode, and it's driven me mad. In change and edit mode, I'm encouraging the agent not to make all of the changes itself, but to make use of sub-agents to efficiently implement all of the features in parallel. Then I've got some rules around generating the database schema, testing the application, and very important and relevant to this section, the design system. Always follow the UI design system when creating or reviewing components or pages. And for the design system, you need to use the design in this file. And if I pull up this file, this is really detailed. This contains everything from colors to typography, borders, padding, everything is in here. But that design system is very bland, so let's replace it. In Claude Code, let's switch over to planning mode, and then I'm just going to copy this prompt. By the way, if you want to view all the prompts used in this video, you can download them for free from the GitHub repository linked in the description. But to save some time, I'm actually just going to copy the prompt, but in a nutshell, we're simply asking the agent to use the front-end design skill to come up with something unique for our AI second brain application. Then we're asking the agent to replace the boilerplate landing page with a new page for our application. It doesn't have to be accurate, we simply want to gauge the design. So let's copy this prompt and let's pass it to the agent. Right, I've approved Claude's plan and now you'll see something really interesting. The main agent is not making the changes itself. Instead, it's kicking off different waves. So wave 1 has 2 agents in it and wave 2 has about 3 different agents in it, all running in parallel. And again, this is due to the rules that we have in that agents file. We've instructed the main agent to act as a coordinator and to use sub-agents to implement the actual changes. This means a lot of tasks can be implemented in parallel instead of us waiting for the main agent to make all of these changes one at a time. And this is what Claude came up with using the front-end design skill. Of course, you can make any changes you want, but at this stage, I'm going to lock this design system in. So what we can do is grab the design.md file, and we can simply say, please store the design system in the design.md file. That's it. It's really that simple. Now when Claude creates new components or pages, it will follow this design system. Stick around because I'm going to show you a really cool trick for enforcing this design system during the build phase. This is something a lot of people struggle with, so you'll definitely appreciate that tip. Right, we've made some awesome progress. We've set up our boilerplate project and we've locked in a design system. We've got a lot of untracked changes. Now, what I like to do is to create a reusable skill to create commits for me. And the comments of those commits contain a TLDR of the changes contained in that commit. I just call this the checkpoint command. So really all I have to do in Claude Code is run the checkpoint command. And this is such a simple skill as well. You can add any of your preferences and instructions for creating commits. So if you like very detailed comments, you can tell the agent to create very detailed comments. Or in my instance, I just want like a one-liner. Now let's move on to planning mode. Natively, Claude will generate a plan for you, but we're definitely going to take it a step further. We're going to create a really detailed implementation plan that's split up into phases and actionable tasks per phase. You're going to see the benefit of doing this in the implementation phase. And then in the interest of time, you can copy this prompt, but we're simply describing the app that we're trying to build. It's a second brain app where the user can provide a URL and will then use a web scraper to extract the contents from the page. We'll use an AI model to summarize and tag the articles, and we'll store it in our second brain. This is also a multi-user app, so anyone can sign in and maintain their own second brain. And then I'm just giving the agent some guidance on how all of this is going to work. In order to, summarize the article and create the tags, we will use OpenRouter. But of course, if you want to use OpenAI or Anthropic or Google Gemini, you're welcome to use any model you want. It really doesn't matter. I'll keep things simple and use OpenRouter. And for the model, I'll use Anthropic and Claude Haiku 4.5. Now, a very important part is scraping data from websites. We should be able to provide any URL and get the data back. By default, Claude is just going to try and fetch data from the page, which is definitely not correct. Web scraping is extremely complicated. So for web scraping, we are going to use the Oxylabs Web Scraper API. And to help the agent out, I'm also giving a link to the actual developer docs. I'll link to this page in the description of the video if you wanted to check it out yourself. So I'll simply copy that entire prompt and send it to the agent. Right, Claude just created this plan, and I do encourage you to actually read through it. Even if you just go over this context section, just make sure that it covers everything that you are expecting to see in this app. Also, always scroll down to the bottom of the plan. Sometimes Claude will actually have questions for you that still needs clarifying. In this case though, I am happy with the plan, but I'm not going to hit bypass permissions. That is a massive mistake. You're going to try and implement everything in a single session, which you should not be doing. What we actually want to do is grab the plan that Claude just came up with, break it up into different phases or waves, and for each phase, we need a checkpoint list of tasks that need to be executed. And that will make sense when we get to the implementation phase. Now, I've already set up a skill called create spec. So if you are using my boilerplate, you can just run this create spec skill. So I'm going to run it in the meantime, but just to explain what this does. And you can obviously prompt Claude yourself to do the exact same thing. All we're telling Claude to do is to take this plan and then convert this into a detailed implementation plan. And that entire implementation plan should be stored in the specs folder. And by the way, the reason we're doing this is we don't want Claude to implement everything in a single session. It is way more effective to actually break up a massive plan into several components that can be implemented in parallel. And then we can fire off multiple Claude sessions or sub-agents to implement the entire solution in different waves at the same time. And this is going to pair beautifully with a native feature in Claude Code called the goal command. Right, let's have a look at the results. So Claude just created this subfolder in the specs folder called article library. In here, we have a README file that's kind of like an index to all of the subfolders or files. There's requirements.md files, like a high-level overview of what we're trying to build. But the real secret sauce here are these individual task files. Claude just split up that entire implementation plan into separate waves. And each wave has a description, dependencies, and a lot of technical details. Each phase also has an actionable list of items or tasks that need to be implemented. So guess what? This is perfect for the goal command, which takes me to the next step. Let's implement this. For the implementation, I'm going to use the Claude agent view, and you'll see why it's so convenient in a second. So to start Claude in agents view, we can run Claude agents, and optionally, we can also run it in dangerously skip permissions mode. And we're going to use this because we are going to kick off several sessions that will run at the same time. So what we'll do first is I'm actually just going to create a commit. So I'm going to run the checkpoint command, and that will add all of these untracked changes to a commit. All right, cool. So that gives us a snapshot, including our spec. Now what I'm going to do, and this is such a cool feature in Claude Code, we're going to run the goal command. This is similar to the rel loop. It will tell the agent to run in a loop until a certain condition is met. So we'll run the goal command. We'll then pull in this spec folder, and then we can give it a prompt like, implement this implementation plan in its entirety. Do not skip a thing. Use the checkpoint skill to create commits after each phase is completed. Use the playwright skill to test each feature end to end. And you know what? That's done. We can send this command, and in agent view, we can easily go to that session by pressing the up or down arrow and by pressing enter. And now we're in that session. Right, so while Claude is implementing this, let me show you this. In this subfolder file, we also have this actions required file. I specifically asked Claude to create this file whenever it creates this implementation plan. This file contains all of the manual activities that we have to do as the users. For web scraping, we do have to set our Oxylabs username and password, and we also have to set our OpenRouter API key. So for OpenRouter, I'll just go to openrouter.ai. Then let's go to API keys. I'll just create a new key and call it second brain. Let's create this. I'll copy the key. Then back in our project, let's go to our .env file, and I'll add the OpenRouter API key over here. And then we also have to set our web scraping credentials. So I'll just add a new section called web scraping with these two variables. So let's just get these credentials. Right, so let's set up our Oxylabs credentials. We'll use the Web Scraper API to retrieve real-time data from the web. Then we'll pass that cleanup data to our model to summarize it. And by the way, they do have pre-created web scrapers for e-commerce, real estate, search engines, you name it. And this is backed by over 175 million residential proxies across 195 countries. And they are SOC 2 Type 2 compliant as well. And they were named Best Proxy Service of 2026 by PCMag. I've partnered with Oxylabs to give my audience 20% off if they use my code Leon, so I'll leave a link to this page in the description. But don't worry, this is not going to cost you a thing. You can use their free plan to get up to 2,000 scraping credits for free. And you do not need a credit card. So let's start by signing in. Then let's go to Scraping Solutions, let's go to Web Scraper API. Then from this page, let's go to Start Free Trial. Now let's set up our web scraper user and let's start our free trial. Then back in our project, let's paste in that username and password that we just created. I am going to do that off screen as I don't want to leak my credentials. Right, so the Claude implementation session did stop because it couldn't get past the Oxylabs credentials. So I simply told Claude that we just captured those credentials and it needs to continue with its testing. Now, here's why I like to use the agent view. We don't just want to work with one session. This is just not effective. What I also like to do is to review the UI and to fix any UI bugs in parallel to the implementation sessions. I also like to do a security audit on the app and resolve any security related issues as well. So what I want to do is actually do a security audit every, 10 minutes and resolve any bugs. So we can use another native capability within Claude Code called the loop command. With the loop command, we can set up a recurring task. For example, we can perform the security audit every 10 minutes. So I'll just say loop every 10 minutes, and then I'll pull in the security scanner skill. That's it. Then let's fire off another loop, and this one we might run every 15 minutes. And for this one, we can say, please review the pages and components of our app and ensure the design system is enforced. Now here's something really fun. We can also say, also identify one meaningful and low-risk improvement to make to the UI and implement it. This is fun. So this means that every 15 minutes, we'll get a brand new feature or design element added to the app. And over time, this makes a really cool difference. And that's it. We now have the main thread running and it's now implementing our app and it's testing the application as well. We are also performing security audits and making any fixes, and we're also making gradual changes to the UI as well. Right, so while Claude is still working on our app, this is also a really fun skill, the Excalibur diagram generator. If you ever wanted to create diagrams using Claude Code, this one is a lot of fun. So I'll simply install that skill. So we can just say something like, I would like you to create an Excalibur diagram visualizing the architecture of our app. Use this skill. Now this app is relatively small, so it might seem like overkill, but if you are working on complex web apps or SaaS applications, this can be really helpful. And this can be a very fun way just to visualize all of the different components in our app. Like, the client is the browser, these are all the different routes, the API endpoints, and externally we're using Oxylabs and OpenRouter, etc. More importantly though, it looks like we are done. Right, so let's test this out. Let's see if we can sign in. Right, so sign in actually works. Let's see if we can find an article to scrape. We'll just grab this one from OpenAI. Let's paste it in here. And let's save this. This should now use Oxylabs to actually extract the data from this page, and then we'll use OpenRouter to summarize the article. And that's it. Our model just created the summary as well as these tags. And if we refresh this page, the data is persisted. Let's just click into this article and beautiful. I mean, we get this awesome summary back. And maybe let's try one more. Let's grab this one from Claude. Let's paste in that URL. And I just added this card as well. And by the way, while we're working on the app, we're still running the security scanner and we're passively making UI improvements as well. So that is my pro workflow in Claude Code. Did I miss anything? Please let me know down in the comments. I also want to thank Oxylabs for sponsoring this video. Try them out yourself. You'll get free credits, and if you use the code Leon, you'll get 20% off. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Build something lekker.